Welcome back. We're here. It's currently Monday night. It's a little chilly outside, so I'm going to start doing some parts assembly for the motor down here. Ended up getting the motor all cleaned up. It was pretty grimy, so at least as much as we need to. So parts should be here on Thursday to start busting into that. All my oiling stuff and rocker arm trending kits and all the other stuff to finish this up so that I can get it back together and paint it up. So I'm going to actually do a little bit of work tonight. Won't be out in the garage though. I'm just going to set you up on a tripod inside. I'm going to assemble my fuel rails and intake manifold. So I'm going to do some speaking over on this just to save you from the headache of my kids. So with that, let's get going. So like I said, this is new. We'll try this out, see how it works. It's been extremely cold here, so I'm going to get started with our injectors. Like I said, factory. We're using the factory injectors out of the L33. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our lower O-ring off. They're in pretty good shape, so we're going to go ahead and end up keeping those. But we need to pull this black cap off the bottom side. That's for the factory intake manifold. We don't need it with the Holley. So I'm going to go ahead and gently pry these off. And then we're going to go ahead and I brought a little cup of gasoline in and a little toothbrush. I'm going to go ahead and clean these injectors off before we go any farther. So just dip it in there. And you can see how dirty it was. So like I said, no sense in putting dirty parts back on a clean build. So clean them up. There was some harder stuff in there, so I had to grab a little screwdriver you'll see here and scrape some of that harder stuff off. And we'll do the same to our O-ring. Just dip our brush in a little gas and clean it off. Like I said, they're in pretty good shape. They're not hard, they're not cracking, so we're just gonna go ahead and reuse our lower O-rings here. Throughout this process I used Vaseline for a lubricant. Just dip our finger in some Vaseline. We'll lubricate that O-ring before we slide it onto the injector. And we'll go ahead and slide it on. Wipe off some of that excess that we had on there. And that's how she's gonna be. Now we're gonna, our top O-rings were in pretty good shape, but Holley supplies with their fuel rails. They supply a new set of O-rings for it, so we just went ahead and took the old O-rings off the top. They have factory ones. Save some time. I already had one done, so just went ahead and changed the O-ring on the top. So that's the old blue one, and then the new black one for the Holley. So I'm going to go through and finish these up and come back when we're on to the next step. So we got all our fuel injectors done. We're going to go ahead and grab our Holley fuel rails. Get these things ready for the injectors to be installed. So again, we're going to use a little bit of Vaseline for lubricant as we go to install these. And slip them in place. Last one going in. We'll grab our other one. So we got these all done. I'm gonna go ahead and get it reorganized here and grab my intake manifold. It's a Holley mid-rise single plane. They make two styles, one for carburetor. This is for fuel rails and injection. So this is the injection one. Now for this style injector, we did end up having to go and get some new hardware, some spacers, which the local Ace actually had. So I'm fumbling around trying to get this bag out so I could show you guys the original hardware that it came with. Just bought a little longer hardware for the spacer that we're adding underneath the brackets to install the injectors, or the brackets to install the rails. So there's the spacers we got. then we'll go ahead and put them in place. Now you'll see I'll install it without blue Loctite, but I go back and Loctite everything, just to ensure that nothing's going to come loose. It's a no-go on a fuel system to have it come loose and shoot fuel. So we got all our brackets finger tight on there. Now we're gonna grab our fuel rail again with the Vaseline. Just gonna make sure we got plenty of lube on the O-rings there, just so they don't catch the aluminum as they're going into the intake manifold. No need to tear your O-rings as you're pushing them in, and then you got a fuel leak. So we'll go ahead and gently push them in place. And we'll grab our hardware that goes from our bracket to our fuel rails. And have a little bit of blue Loctite on those. And get those started. Now that we got everything started, we're going to go ahead and start by tightening the bolts that go to the fuel rail from the bracket first, which will square up those brackets on the intake manifold. Don't need to go too tight. Like I said, there ain't no sense in stripping out your fuel rails. Then we'll go ahead and put our extension on and tighten down our brackets to our intake manifold. And that's one side done. You'll see I clocked the injectors towards the outside, towards the valve covers. That's because I'm going to have my coil wires there, so just save a little bit on the wiring. It's all going to go down one side of the engine from one side of the, so. That's what she looks like all together. We went ahead and went with our 1000 CFM throttle body. Add some bling on the top there. Yeah, it's gonna look pretty cool on the engine. So in the next episode, we'll have all the parts to start putting into our engine and getting that ready to be put into the car. Like I said, that stuff comes in on Thursday. So with that, come back, stay tuned for more content, like, subscribe, check out my socials for earlier updates on some of the upcoming stuff we're gonna do. Have a good night, guys.